Hello and welcome. If you've ever felt just completely wiped out for weeks or even months after being sick, then you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're going to get into post-viral fatigue, figuring out what that deep exhaustion is all about, and then looking at some real practical ways to get back in the driver's seat. Let's dive in.
So, does this question hit home for you? The virus itself is gone, the fever's broken, but you're left with this heavy, bone-deep tiredness that just will not lift. If that sounds familiar, I want you to know you are not alone, and it is not just in your head. This lingering feeling has a name, and just understanding it is the first big step.
All right, so first things first, let's get super clear on what we're actually talking about here. How can you tell if what you're feeling is this specific thing, post-viral fatigue, and not just, the regular old tiredness we all get? Well, it turns out the difference is huge and it's critical. So at its simplest, post-viral fatigue is pretty much what it sounds like. It's this long, drawn-out period of feeling unwell and just drained after your body's been through the ringer fighting off a virus. It's actually a pretty common response, but it can be so debilitating. And it's now known as the #1 most common symptom of what people are calling long COVID. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because this is how you can tell the difference. Normal tiredness, that's temporary. You work a long day, you feel tired. You get a good night's sleep, and boom, you feel better. But post-viral fatigue, that's a whole other ballgame. It's prolonged, and it's completely disproportionate. What that means is a tiny little task, like taking a shower, can leave you feeling wiped out for hours. And maybe the most frustrating part, rest and sleep don't really seem to fix it. And yeah, it's so much more than just feeling physically tired. This condition can really impact every part of your life. We're talking brain fog, trouble concentrating, your emotions might be all over the place. It really is this wide-ranging thing that affects you physically, mentally, and even cognitively. Okay, so we've covered the what's, but to really get a handle on this, we've got to understand the why. Why is this happening in the first place? Well, the latest science is pointing to a really fascinating and very real biological reason. And this quote just cuts right to the chase. For so long, people who felt this way were sometimes told, it's all in your head. But researchers are now saying, nope, the cause of this fatigue is really biological. There's something physically going on inside your body, right down to the cellular level. And that brings us to these little guys, the mitochondria. You probably remember them from science class, right? They're the tiny energy factories or powerhouses inside our cells. Their whole job is to produce the energy that our body needs for, well, everything. Moving, thinking, breathing, all of it. So here's the kicker. A really important recent study looked at the muscle cells of people with long COVID. And what did they find? They found that their mitochondria, those energy factories, just weren't working right. After even a little bit of exertion, they were producing way less energy than the mitochondria in healthy people. Your body is basically going through a literal energy crisis. Okay, so knowing that it's a biological energy problem helps us understand why a really common pattern, something that feels totally natural to do, can actually make things so much worse. We're going to talk about something called the boom and bust trap. So picture this. You wake up one morning and for the first time in a while, you feel, okay, maybe even kind of good. And what's the first thing you want to do? You want to catch up on everything, right? All the chores, all the work, all the life you've been missing out on. So you push yourself. But that instinct can seriously backfire. And this is exactly what happens. It's a vicious cycle. You have that good day, which leads to a boom of overactivity. But because your cellular energy factories can't keep up, you end up overexerting yourself. And that leads to a bust, a crash. You end up having a bad day, or even several bad days, where your symptoms are even worse and you're forced to do nothing at all. This cycle doesn't just slow down your recovery, it can actually make you worse over time. That bust or crash phase actually has a technical name. It's called post-exertional malaise, or PEM for short. And here's the really tricky part you need to remember. It's often delayed. You might do a bunch of stuff and feel okay right after, but then bam, a day or two later, you crash hard. It's a classic sign of this condition. Okay, that was the tough stuff. We've defined the problem, we know the science behind it, and we can see the trap that's so easy to fall into. So now, let's pivot to the solution. Let's talk about how you can start to reclaim control of your energy. The single most effective strategy, backed by evidence, is something called pacing. And the idea behind it is actually pretty simple. Instead of pushing yourself until you crash, you learn to listen to your body and stay within your energy limits. what some people call your energy envelope. It's all about breaking that boom and bust cycle. So how do you actually do it? Okay, step one, find your baseline. This means figuring out what you can consistently do without triggering that crash. Then you plan and prioritize. You actually schedule rest into your day, like it's an appointment. The big goal here is to conserve energy and, this is the hardest part, learn to stop before you feel tired. Then, and only when you're feeling stable, you can try to slowly, and I mean very slowly, increase what you're doing. The big motto here is start low and go slow.
I think this analogy is perfect. Imagine you're driving a car and you see a brick wall up ahead. You wouldn't wait until you smack into it to hit the brakes, right? You'd brake before you get there. Well, with this kind of fatigue, that wall is overexertion, and at crash, PEM. Pacing is just learning to apply the brakes ahead of time, even when you feel like you could keep going.
All right, so to make pacing a real habit in your life, you're gonna need a toolkit. So for this last part, let's look at a few simple but really powerful strategies you can start using like today. Okay, when your to-do list just feels totally overwhelming, try using the 4 Ds. First, what absolutely has to be done today? Second, what can you delay until tomorrow or later? Third, who can you delegate this to? Can you ask for help? And finally, the most important one, what can you just drop? Seriously, be ruthless about it. Let go of anything that isn't absolutely essential right now. This is so important. Rest is not just about taking a nap. If you've just spent an hour doing a really intense mental task, maybe you need mental rest, like sitting quietly with no stimulation. If you've just been in a noisy, bright supermarket, you probably need sensory rest. You have to match the type of rest to the type of activity that drained you.
And to really make this stick, try thinking about your energy in a new way. Think of it like a daily money budget. You only have so much, so don't go into debt by borrowing energy from tomorrow. Or think of it like gas in your car. You want to refuel before the tank hits empty. But my favorite analogy is the phone battery. Your body's battery has been damaged a bit by the virus. It doesn't hold a charge as well as it used to, and it needs more frequent, shorter charges throughout the day to keep going.
So we'll end on this thought. Pacing isn't about giving up on your life, it's the total opposite. It's about strategically and smartly rebuilding it. It's about respecting where your body is right now so you can give it the chance to heal. So my question for you is, looking at your day, what is one small thing you can pace today to start on that path of rebuilding your energy?